Just yesterday, the Biden administration pardoned all prior federal offenses of simple marijuana possession. Good Friday evening, everyone. Welcome to Western Mass News at 5. I'm Chris Pisano.
And I'm Mary Wilson. This is the president's first major step toward decriminalizing the drug. Western Mass News reporter Paris Dunford joins us live with more. Paris?
Chris, Mary, this announcement will impact thousands of Americans who have a charge of simple possession on their record. One attorney we spoke with says this is a huge weight off some people's shoulders.
The individual who has this on their record as a conviction is no longer considered a convicted felon.
On Thursday, President Joe Biden announced he will be pardoning people convicted of simple marijuana possession, which means about 6,500 people will have that crime removed from their record. As part of the announcement, the president also encouraged governors to take similar steps to pardon those with a state charge. Western Mass News spoke with criminal defense attorney Joe Bernard to find out why.
Crimes that might involve multi-states, crimes that might involve other aspects that take the jurisdiction away from the state and put it in the federal authorities.
A day after the president's announcement, local officials began sharing their thoughts on the move. Hampden District Attorney Anthony Gallooni is one person who is showing his support towards the process of potentially loosening federal classification of the drug. In a statement, he writes in part, quote, "I believe in second chances for those who have paid their debt and moved on, especially considering how simple marijuana possession is now legal. Removing these minor charges from people's records could break down barriers for them as they seek to contribute to society and support their families, including seeking employment or financial aid for school." And Attorney Bernard agrees, saying this could change the lives of those convicted of simple marijuana possession.
If they have two or more, this could alter their life significantly. Because a federal subsequent offense marijuana case is a felony, if it's pardoned, this person now no longer has a felony, and the whole world can open up for job opportunities.
Western Mass News also spoke with a Holyoke City councilor who was in prison for selling marijuana about 15 years ago. Be sure to tune in tonight at 6 for his reaction to the president's pardons. For now, reporting live in studio, Paris Dunford for Western Mass News.